This is Wendell doing natural, serious work in his environment. See, people don't understand that you actually do that. This is what you're doing whenever you're not doing the tech. People think that you sit there waiting to do the tech, but they don't understand that you have a job.
Well, no, I try to take pity on the viewers. I'm using a keyboard that I absolutely hate, which is the quietest keyboard that I own, because otherwise I would be using this. This keyboard is a magnificent creature, and it sounds like this.
Can we hear it? Yes.
I can't hear you over the sound of how awesome this keyboard is.
Well, we'll try to make this show about 2/3 as awesome as the sound of that keyboard. And tonight it's going to be a guaranteed show brought to you by coffee and, I don't know, some terrible syndrome that I probably have that I'm not aware of. Yeah, another week. No office updates just yet. We've prepared about 400 blogs for you guys, or vlogs, or whatever the kids on the internet call these video logs or whatever. I don't know. So I want to say thanks to all the Patreon members. You guys are keeping us alive right now while we're preparing to move into the new office. We'll have a definitive answer on Monday, they tell us, about this new office. And then, Wendell, we get to do something fun. We're going to go in there with sledgehammers and tear down the entire place and rebuild it from scratch because they're going to give us an allowance. We found an ugly place, and we're like, this place is ugly but could be pretty. Could we fix it? And they're like, yes, we can fix it. So that might be really cool. And, yeah. Anyways, thanks to you guys. Thanks to the tech support members. And all the people who are buying up Zweihander and making the game possible. And last but not least, the shirt of the month is garish this month. It's completely garish, at least tie-dye. I freaking like these tie-dye ones. Someone said that this is very Guy Fieri, and I almost went through the internet and punched them. Because, come on, guys, we're not that tacky. Really? I mean, we're not like 50-year-old man wearing a skull and flame shirt, are we? We're not that tacky. Yeah, check out all the new stuff on the store. We've got some awesome new shirts coming out pretty soon. And I just ordered a bunch more of the desk mats because as soon as I order them and they get here, you guys buy them all up and then we're like, oh, we're out of desk mats again. So sorry about that. Anyway, lots of different colors. The colors that you guys like best on the shirts of the month are going to be, permanent shirts of the month, or permanent shirts, I suppose. We'll make one or two of these designs. Last but not least, we have 2 awesome new hats for you guys out there who like to hat around. I don't know. One is the Pixel Burning Earth logo. It's kind of cool looking. And then we've got this red, kind of interesting, cool hat. If I wore a hat, I'd probably wear those. So anyway, there, we got all that out of the way in the beginning. Now we don't have to worry about any more advertisements other than the ones that YouTube and Fullscreen and all these other companies throw at you. So, hey, that's over with. Pay the bills ourselves. All right, this is one quick follow-up. UN, the UN has come out on the side of Apple versus the FBI and just said that, hey, this is going to create a precedent for the rest of the world and everything's bad. So now even the UN is chiming in and being like, hey, U.S. government better watch what you guys are messing with when it comes to encryption. And you guys, I'm sure, have already seen our Rant 30 video that we really, in that video we really look into things. And for people who think that we're just trying to make that video to bash Apple, we're on Apple's side here. Except we want to take a step back and look at the big picture, the perspective, and see how a lot of this is mainly a PR move. So, doing the right thing, but wrong reason. So, you guys have seen that video, I'm sure.
The question is Apple on Apple's side because it's the right thing to do, or because they can make more money, or is it just a happy coincidence that it's both of those things?
All right, so tying into all of this nonsense, something kind of unexpected just happened. Amazon has decided to remove encryption from their tablet devices. And, they're saying that this doesn't have anything to do with the whole Apple fiasco. The reason that they have removed encryption from their tablets is that they are slowly removing some quote-unquote enterprise-grade features that they found that no one was using. And first off, why would you remove something that's already there? If no one's using it, you say no one's using it, that means that a small percentage. That doesn't mean no one. So someone out there was using it, and someone out there probably enjoyed some of these enterprise-grade features. So Amazon, why would you remove enterprise-grade features from your devices in the first place? They're already there. It seems like it would take some effort to remove them. Maybe removing them from future devices, that's one thing. And then why remove them from your tablets but not your phones and everything else? I'm a little confused here. Well, they also wanted to ensure everyone that they are still using encryption whenever you're doing anything with the Amazon server, pinging back home to buy stuff and all that. They're still using the appropriate encryption. Linda, what do you think?
It turns out they backpedaled almost as fast as they made the announcement. which is Amazon will, and I quote, return the option for full disk encryption to the Fire OS with another update coming this spring. So the update that's coming out right now removes encryption, and then there's another update coming in spring that'll add back encryption. So it's like, oh, don't freak out, everybody. This is just a thing. It's fine. It's okay.
You know what I feel like? I feel like someone in the Amazon offices was really just completely oblivious to everything else that's happening in the world. There's some nerd who works in a cubicle and doesn't see the light of day much and goes home and plays, whatever that card game is that Blizzard, everyone plays at Blizzard. He goes home and does that, and that's all he does pretty much all day long. Drinks milk. That's all he drinks. No water.
Not milk. That new milk fad thing that's like fake milk.
Oh, Soylent. Yeah. That's what I was thinking about. Just goes home, drinks Soylent, and plays his Hearthstone. That's what it is. Is that what it is? Hearthstone? No, that's not it. I don't know. Stone. I don't know. That Blizzard card game that's all the rage. Everyone's going to yell at me and they're, you idiot! Especially Tyler. Tyler's getting mad right now because that's like his favorite game. I don't know. That's what I picture. But anyway, he doesn't know what's going on in the world. And so he's like, you know what? No one's using these features. Let's go ahead and remove them. And he made the decision to remove all these features at this time, which would have been the worst time ever for PR. He's fired. Like someone at Amazon had just hit the ceiling and they're like, why the hell did he do this? Because now we are in the news at the worst time possible. If he did this 2 months ago, nobody would have said a damn thing. It would have been like, oh, they've removed some enterprise-grade features that no one was using. No one would have really said anything. But now it's like, put on your conspiracy hat and everything else is going on. Amazon's working with the government. So, yeah, it's funny to hear that they've already backpedaled. And they've if we look into this, I bet if we make some calls over there at Amazon, they've probably let someone go who drinks Soylent. Why do I have to profile that way?
There was... So... We're going to save this. We're going to try to give you a sort of a quick summary version of this. Some of the most influential people in computer science that have to do with encryption, one of them said, well, I don't know if this specific case with the FBI and Apple is really about a universal backdoor. And he had some interesting comments. This was in a panel at a conference, basically. And he was with some other cryptographers on this panel, and they all had different ideas. Would you guys want to see a rant 30 about encryption in general, why encryption has to work the way that it does, and why encryption needs to not have a backdoor? The reason that I ask is because there are things that are happening right now with SSL certificates. You guys may have heard about SSL weaknesses, things like the drown attack and logjam and other kinds of problems. The elliptic curve problem that affected Juniper networks, huge security problem for Juniper networks. The security problems that have affected Cisco devices. If you're running a Cisco device or a Juniper device that doesn't have firmware installed on it that was dated from a few months ago or not dated very recently, anybody that wants to can take over your router, and it's no problem at all. Then, those weaknesses are because of controls that the U.S. government had placed on corporations in terms of the kind of encryption they were allowed to export. Basically, this encryption had weaknesses in it that were tantamount to backdoors. And so we could explain all that and go over it in great detail and do all that in Rant 30, maybe, if you're interested.
So let us know. On that same exact sort of topic, let's talk about the IRS getting hacked yet again, talking about backdoors and encryption. Now, before we do that, I want everyone to remember out there, because a lot of the articles I'm seeing online make it sound like the IRS is an actual branch of the government. And the IRS is like the Federal Reserve, where it has a very official sounding name, lots of logos with, official looking U.S. stuff all over them, but they're actually a private company, and their headquarters is in Puerto Rico, not within the 50 states. It's in a territory. So just keep that in mind. And Puerto Rico is part of the USA, so I'm not trying to, if anyone down there is watching, I'm not trying to slight you guys or anything like that, but I'm just saying it's there. It's not in Washington. It's not part of the states areas or whatever. Anyway, just remember that. So if you guys remember last year, they had a huge data breach, and they said, we've seemed to have lost about 100,000 people's information, and it was all out there. And, that number was bumped up in August to like 300 and something thousand. It's actually around 724,000 people who have been, who have been, I guess, exposed. All their tax records, people can get a hold of them. And what people can do with that sort of information is, this used to happen when I lived in Miami. This was a big deal. people who worked in Miami. This is separate from this, but people who worked at different places in Miami, it happens all over the place. And this probably happens all over the country, but specifically when I was there, I remember like people who worked at the fire department would get everyone's social security number and sell it to some guy on the black market, and so that they could go and file tax returns and get all the money sent there. And the IRS doesn't do proper checking as far as addresses and that sort of thing goes, as long as you make a reasonable claim that says, hey, you owe me a couple grand, here's my social, here's my information. The IRS will just cut you a check, which is just asinine, but it works. And so you have all these corrupt individuals inside these companies being like, all right, we'll give you 100 social security numbers or 200 social security numbers for 10 grand. And that was happening all over the place. Well, this is even worse because they were able to break in and get all this private information on hundreds of thousands of individuals. And then with that, they can use that to file for tax returns. And the IRS, by and large, just automatically cuts them a check. So it's a mess. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, well, it files for, you can file for a refund.
Right.
So you submit a tax return that's basically, I screwed up really bad. I'm owed a whole bunch of money from my taxes, and the IRS happily sends a check that's like, sure, where do you want it? Oh, this address isn't your home address. Oh, we don't care, whatever.
What's funny was they were sending hundreds of checks to the same address. Like they were like some guy get a PO box or something and send like a few hundred returns to the same address and be like, man, there's a lot of people living at that joint.
The most egregious thing with this is that this already happened once, and then they set up the same system. Nothing had changed. And it was exploited in exactly the same way. It's like, what did you expect to happen? Is this another data point, or is this the definition of insanity? What did you expect?
Well, yeah, they introduced the PIN system. Now you have to have you submit a PIN number along with your return. So that's really all they did. Was like, well, let's add another number. They've got the social security number.
No. There's a forgot PIN. If you click forgot PIN on the PIN service, you go through the old system.
Yeah. That's where I was going with this. So you have your PIN. And then when you go to retrieve your PIN, it's the same exact easy to exploit, like where did your parents live type thing. But they were able to hack into the system and get right by it. So, yeah. I think that's quite funny. And a bit sad. All right. What's next on the list here? Ooh! How about tires in the shape of a sphere? I can't help but laugh a little bit, Wendell. Because
we include these articles because we want you guys to think critically. And so when you see articles like this, it's like, let's think through this critically, because this is probably the dumbest thing that I've ever seen, ever.
What if they make it work and then we have to eat our words? That hasn't happened really much. But I think this is mostly, hey, look how cool this is. It's a sensational idea. No cars can use these. And each individual wheel has to have some sort of a magnetic device and a battery on the inside, but yeah, I guess it's an interesting idea as far as like, hey, this will look like a sci-fi movie, cars floating above wheels. I don't know.
Interesting. Let me just summarize this for you. The Eagle 360, that's what they're calling this tire, would also send assessments of the grip to the car's computer and inform it when it's necessary to travel below the speed limit, which will basically be like all the time. It turns out we've tried spherical wheels as a method of propulsion for robots, and it's an astonishingly bad idea. I can't begin to describe how it's a terrible idea. It has some advantages, meaning that you can have a vehicle that just goes in an arbitrary number of directions. But I'll tell you what happened inside Goodyear. Somebody watched Star Wars, and they saw the new BB-8 in Star Wars, and they were like, holy crap, that's a really great idea. Let's put that on a car. And then thus we have this article. And this is really bad, and it's just, blood's going to shoot out of my nose if I keep thinking about it very much longer. But this is really just, spherical tires, really, this is tabloid. Why is this here?
I don't even know. Because it's here because people are going to think about it and look at this and be like, oh, that's the future. But we're here to say this is probably not the future. The point of contact with the road is very minuscule. And I know that there's a different type of grip on there, and I know that it'll rotate to the correct way, and I know that the material can even absorb a little bit of water when it's raining to help. They say that the pattern is the same as brain coral, and that it's going to be able to. They're using all these crazy terms, but the bottom line is here. Beyond all that, in order to have a car that can hover above 4 tires, you're going to need some electromagnets in there. And in order to power and house all that kind of nonsense, you're going to have these giant electromagnetic contraptions that are way too heavy to put into a car currently. So there'll have to be huge advances made. Maybe in, I don't know, 30 years or something. But the problem is by the time these are ready, we'll have hover cars. I mean, we'll have figured out anti-gravity or something. I don't know. So, yeah, not happening.
It's just...
No.
I just there is actually there is a different kind of wheel that is it's a wheel with sort of diagonal things on it that robots can use. It's sort of a wheel that has wheels on it, but
Like
the wheels that are on the wheel
thing.
They're really rollers and they're at an angle, and that will allow a robot to move in any direction. And you see those sometimes, and those are kind of neat. But these things are not terribly efficient in terms of the wheel. The wheel's pretty good. It's hard to improve on the wheel, and the sphere ain't the wheel. So it's, unless you're like inside the sphere, and then maybe. But see, the problem too is also grip. I mean, I get that the sphere is going to deform when it's in contact with the pavement, but the way that a tire deforms in contact with the pavement, I think you're going to get more overall surface area on the tire in contact with a traditional tire than a sphere. Although I think it probably would be fun to do the math for two-dimensional ABS braking, because you could move the wheel in two different directions, and so things like traction control and ABS, that would be a lot of fun. And that I'll confess is the other reason that I was like, okay, we can probably leave this article, because it really would be fun to think about the kind of math involved to do the vector calculations to try to figure out traction control in 2 dimensions on a vehicle. That'd be a lot of fun.
More vehicle news here. We've got this is another article that's sort of devoid of any real, details. But they're saying that ARPA-E, which is the Advanced Research Projects Agency Energy, okay, they've created the holy grail of battery storage, and they haven't really said much about this. They just, if you look through the article, I don't know what they've exactly created, but they say that Bill Gates and Elon Musk have been trying to figure this out, and this could revolutionize the industry in a number of years. And they've got a number of different companies making these things. It's a government agency who was working on a number of long shot projects, or moonshots, I guess they call them. And what's interesting about that is a lot of these companies could not normally work on projects that are like that, because they require a ton of investment. And Obama actually set this up to help us figure out some new ways to just get more into the renewables. And some of the, implications here, so far they're saying, will be, hey, we'll be able to have way better, power retention for homes that have solar panels and that sort of thing, better for cars. So I don't really know much more about this, because if you look at the article, they don't say how the batteries work exactly. They just say that they have a totally new approach to battery technology, and it's, I need more information. I want to know what this battery is, what it does, why it's the holy grail, how much longer it lasts. All that's not in this article here. So, is there some?
The thing you got to keep in mind is, do you guys remember when laptops used to catch on fire left and right? It turns out lithium is actually really good for storing electrons very densely. But when you pack in that much area, entropy sort of works against you. And the battery can't wait to catch on fire because there's so much energy packed into such a small area. Lithium-ion batteries, that's still true. And a lot of the control that we've exerted over lithium has to do more with the charging circuitry and some other thermal protection circuits. So like when you've got a lithium-ion battery now, it absolutely has a thermal protection circuit and a current overflow protection, and also some stuff to prevent it from discharging, doing a deep discharge, because a deep discharge will basically make it to where that it's impossible to charge it up again. I'm not sure if that'll lead to a thermal runaway, but I don't think so, because energy wouldn't be stored in the cell. And so we've pretty much got a handle on lithium. Lithium is great. And I'm always really skeptical when technologies like this come out, because it's like, hey, we've quadrupled the efficiency of lithium-ion batteries. It's like, okay, show me that it's not going to catch on fire left and right. This is something that even Boeing struggled with. Boeing's like, yeah, we got our new airplane batteries. It's great. Our new Dreamliner, it's electric. And then the FAA was like, why are all these planes catching on fire? And Boeing's like, oh. So they had to talk to Musk about that. So that was a thing. And so this, until it's safe to use in an airplane, I sort of want to see. And the article kind of talks about that. Bill Gates describes this as the Death Valley for innovation. And it's like, well, it works great in the lab, but in the field it catches planes on fire. Oh yeah, and so the Chinese, a lot of the reason the hoverboards are catching on fire is because their lithium-ion cells, they're the bleeding-edge lithium-ion cells that pack in a ton of energy, but they also don't have the thermal overload protection circuits and a lot of the other protections that you have to have in most developed countries. And so it's a dangerous combination, and we see that things catch on fire. And so if these people are saying they're getting 4 times the density of that, we're going to have to make really sure that they're not going to burn people's houses down or catch planes on fire or whatever, because that would be bad.
Let's talk about the internet, shall we? Just a little bit about the internet. Some interesting news coming out of Iowa right now. Some of a huge chunk of dark fiber is about to be sold off. So, well, I guess it's not with dark fiber. It's being used, but only to 10% of its capacity. Iowa, back in 1989, created a very large, 8,600 mile large fiber optic, I guess, grid system. They ran fiber optics everywhere. Spent $320 million, and most of it's going to educational facilities, schools, that sort of thing, hospitals, just government stuff. And they realized, we're only using 10% of this. We could probably even upgrade the hardware on either end of the fiber optics, and then be able to provide some pretty interesting internet. Because right now, none of this is available to the public. It's all just being used by National Guard and libraries and stuff like that for education, and it's nice and fast. In 1989, can you imagine if everyone was using the fiber that was put into the ground in the 80s and 90s? Man. Anyway.
I think this is also important to demonstrate that what we always say is when you've got the fiber infrastructure in place, it's not like copper. You just need to replace a few little pieces of electronics and you can keep using the fiber. Case in point, 1989. Think about how long ago that was. And this fiber optic infrastructure is immediately usable at gigabit speeds, 10 gigabit, 40 gigabit. That's amazing.
Maybe even 100 gigabit. The only thing that matters is what's the box of knowledge on either end of the fiber. What kind of router are you plugging this into? So, there is a limit, but we're not going to reach that for quite a while. So all this fiber in the ground can do a lot. And when you see companies like Comcast and stuff complaining,
got that. No, we're going to talk about a science article later in the show, and this science article demonstrated how they can send 2 bits per photon. So, yeah, the upper limit of this system is 2 bits per photon. That is a staggeringly high amount of data.
Anyway, they're about to sell this off, and it's going to be up for grabs. I'm wondering who's going to buy this. I wonder if Google thinks that Iowa is a viable market. I don't know. Who's in Iowa? Is it Comcast or Frontier? Who's in Iowa? CenturyLink? I don't know. Who's going to buy this? That's what I want to know. I'm going to guess keep an eye on this because we don't want everyone in Iowa to get screwed. If you guys get some crappy company who buys it and they're like, ooh, if Comcast buys it, they'll be like, ooh, we can use this to deliver our private television stuff and nerf all the rest of everything so that only our stuff gets priority, and we will sell these packages for insane amounts of money. I'm not sure if the Iowa government will let that sort of thing happen, but who knows? Yeah. One thing that the companies have to agree to is they do not want any of the speeds degraded on the current, whatever's currently there. They don't want any of the libraries to have slower speeds and all that kind of stuff. So keep an eye on that. Could be interesting. Yeah. So, man, poor Missouri. I feel bad for Missouri. Did you see this article about Missouri? AT&T is pretty much buying up the state law. I guess they've looked at, Kansas City, Missouri, and they're like, ooh, look at that. That's awful. What if Google starts to roll out stuff in the rest of the state? Google's rolling out stuff everywhere. And AT&T's like, damn, we better do something about this so that Google can't expand. And there we have the same sort of thing that's been going on in Tennessee and North Carolina, where all these old companies go and pay off the local governments and stuff.
Kentucky.
Happening in Kentucky, too. They're trying to buy off the locals.
Google Fiber is maybe coming to Louisville, and one of the things that the Google Fiber team told Louisville to do to make themselves more appealing is to make it so that Google Fiber will have access to the utility poles as a public utility. Of course, AT&T is suing over this. It's like, it's got to be, it's us and the power company. There's nobody else. It's like, but come on, guys. We let you guys abandon the copper infrastructure. Come on. Why would you do this?
Yeah. Oh, well.
This is really bad. This is the kind of thing that the American citizenry really ought to be grabbing their torches and pitchforks about, because AT&T, by and large, has abandoned the copper infrastructure to the point that they're like, copper no longer matters. I totally agree. Copper does no longer matter. However, there does not exist a fiber optic infrastructure that your customers can take advantage of. That's a problem.
Yeah, they just want really expensive DSL. That's AT&T's entire business model. It's funny because Comcast business models, they want really, they want to stifle everyone else and make sure that their coax that's in the ground that's the thing. And then you got AT&T. They're like, oh no, we've got DSL. DSL is the thing. Very slow, crappy DSL. But hey, the ping's good. How about that ping? You guys can have 5 or 10 megabits per second with 15 ping. Don't you like that? That's actually pretty good for games, but no, not in this day and age as far as the overall bandwidth goes. No, not enough AT&T. So, all right, next up on the menu here, we've got Comcast. And they've been accused of violating their embassy merger. There's a consumer advocacy group known as the Public Knowledge. So this is something that we talked about quite a while ago, where Comcast has their own, what is it called? Their own Stream TV. And Stream TV is very similar to like a Netflix or something like that, where it's just Comcast's area where you can go and stream TV. And they're saying that it doesn't count as internet, even though it's coming over the internet. They're saying it's coming over. They've got this weird way of wording it, because to them, as long as it's within their network, meaning as long as the server is on their property connected through their lines, that's not the internet. That's more of an internal thing. So they're seeing it as being exempt from net neutrality rules, and they're giving it a 0 rating, meaning it does not count against your 300 gigabyte data bandwidth cap, that's the higher bandwidth cap. There's smaller bandwidth caps for different price tiers and that sort of thing. So already the bandwidth caps are BS, and now they're doing this. But the consumer advocacy group is saying, hey, listen, when they purchased NBC Universal and got access to all these programs and all this sort of thing, and now they're pretty much a content company now, they agreed not to violate net neutrality because it would give them an unfair advantage. And they're arguing that it's doing this. So it looks like the FCC is going to take a closer look at this, and that's a good thing, because for the last year or so, Tom Wheeler has been surprising me. What's up with that, Wendell? I mean, do you think that Tom Wheeler is actually on our side? I mean, every time he does something, I'm like, really? He's kind of doing something good? I don't understand. Why does he keep doing good things?
I don't know.
Is it time to say he's okay?
It is kind of surprising. This is actually, there's a little bit more to this than I think that public knowledge realizes, and the Comcast sort of realizes. So Comcast wants to have their cake and eat it too. Basically, the situation is that they want to give people access to streaming services, video on demand, things like that, on their devices. They have that kind of thing through set-top boxes, but we always mock the set-top boxes. I mean, the Motorola box from 2009 hasn't changed. You still, from 2009 to the present day, your cable box that you get from the cable company has not really changed. It's an awful, awful piece of trash. No one likes to use it. It's terrible. It's just absolutely terrible. And from the cable company's point of view, the ease of access and ease of use of things like Apple TV and Hulu and Netflix and all this other stuff on the computer, you're stuck trying to replicate that experience with a piece of crap set-top box and a TV that's probably not even hooked up with an HDMI cable. So even if they had the best situation in the living room, it's probably not going to work out real well for the cable companies. And so what they're saying is, well, we want it to be like as if you are streaming, like we want you to have the DVR on your home network, and we want it to be like as if you're streaming from the DVR on your home network to your devices. And if that were what really was happening, then Comcast, I think, would actually not be violating net neutrality, because you'd have a cable box. It'd be a lot like the setup that I have at home. You have a cable box, and it's tuning your TV shows, and it's a DVR, and so it can capture and record stuff, and that's happening in your house on your local network, and everything's fine. And then when you want to stream from that to your devices, you can totally do that. But that's not what's happening here, because the set-top box is such a piece of crap, they can't pull this off with the set-top box. They can't write the software for the set-top box to actually be able to do this. And so they're saying, well, theoretically, we could probably write a piece of software that would make it not violate net neutrality. In reality, it totally does violate net neutrality because they're delivering IP streaming traffic, TCP packets, from outside the local cable modem as part of the internet infrastructure. So they totally are violating net neutrality.
I feel like they consider it more of an intranet, you know what I mean? Like, because it's coming from their server that's on their lines are in the ground. So it's like, it's on our private network. It's not really touching the actual internet. It's like an intranet, really. That's another way they're justifying it.
We predicted this would happen.
Yeah.
We predicted that this is exactly where cable companies would go with the whole IPTV thing. That's why we said it's like, they're broadcasting signal. If they just stop doing that, they would be in a much better situation. We absolutely predicted that this would happen, and there should be safeguards in this. I think Comcast is being a little bit disingenuous when they're making that kind of an argument, because it is purely IP traffic. The only situation there where it doesn't violate net neutrality is you're streaming from your own DVR on your network box, and they have physically the hardware to do that, but there's no software that works that way right now because it's too convoluted, because their set-top boxes are so crappy they couldn't pull it off. That's how they planned to pull it off. They tried to pull it off. They put some engineering efforts in that. I don't know that for sure. I'm just guessing. But they couldn't pull it off, and they're like, crap.
Well, it's also going to be dangerous for them in the future because the FCC is... Sorry. The delay. If anyone ever wonders why we interrupt each other, it's because there's about a half-second delay, just like when you watch the news. What I was going to say is the other thing about the set-top boxes is that's also a dangerous area for them, so they don't want to invest in that direction right now, because the FCC has pretty much opened the floodgates for anybody out there like Google and Amazon and everyone else to be able to make something to replace that set-top box, and third parties can even make their own set-top boxes. So the days of the set-top box monopoly may be over soon, but I'm sure the incumbents are going to fight like mad about this because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they're going to lose a lot of money on these ridiculous set-top boxes. Anyway, back to this. Wendell?
If we could get them to classify this kind of IPTV traffic as IP traffic, like coming at it from the other side, the traffic that is streamed to the cable box as IP traffic now is not necessarily IP traffic, but it's multicast, so it's a broadcast. It's not really directed packets or whatever. But if we could get a byte count on that and have that be the person's true data cap, and they're like, no, I don't want television. I want to use the bytes that would ordinarily be used to spam all of my devices with television I'm not going to watch to actually be my data cap. Data caps would not actually be a problem. The amount of data that your set-top box receives in a month is at least in the tens of terabytes, if not the hundreds of terabytes. Granted, that's a broadcast signal a lot of the time, but not all the time.
A lot of it's still, a lot of it's digital. It may not be, TCP IP traffic, but it's still pretty much digital traffic, and it could easily be converted.
They are kind of transitioning.
Yeah, it could be used either way, I think. So, I don't know. Let's watch this, see what public knowledge has going on here. Comcast is over here arguing that public knowledge doesn't have their facts straight, and of course we've just taken that nonsense apart. So
we want it to be this way. It's like, no, it's not actually that way.
All right, let's see what's next on the list here. You want to talk about some super intelligent? See, I can't even say this. I'm so dumb. Super intelligent humans. Apparently, they could be on the horizon thanks to genetic modification. And there's also the moral issue here: is should we create the essentially the master race of super intelligent humans? This website here seems to think that that's just coming. It's just that's the future. And should it be our responsibility to usher in a more intelligent human? And we're talking like humans with the IQ of 1,000. Einstein, I guess, what would his IQ have been? Some people say it was around 200. Some people say that by today's standard, it would be 150. I don't know, because a lot of people out there who claim that their IQ is 150 are no Einstein. But still, what they would have to do is they would go in and mess with lots of little pieces of DNA, and they found that there are several different spots in the DNA, in fact, thousands of little things they can adjust that affect IQ. If they adjust them all, like right now, they say that, right now they already have probably enough knowledge to go in and raise someone's IQ points by like 15 as far as their posterity goes. And a lot of the things like IQ, and stuff like that, IQ, sometimes your body size and structure and that sort of thing. That's genetic. A lot of people think that it's just, anyone can go to school, and I hate to tell you this, but if you're stupid, you can learn a lot, but you'll never be as smart as someone who is naturally predisposed to be smarter. That's just smart people breeding. It's science. I know it's not popular. I know you probably don't like it, but that's just the science of things. Smart people breeding makes smarter babies by default. Anyway, so by messing around with genetics, they will be able to create superhumans. So do you think, Wendell, what do you think? Do you think we should make humans with the IQ of 1,000?
I think that it's very likely that this is going to happen regardless of whether or not we want it to happen.
The reality TV shows are going to go insane. They're all going to go out of business. They're going to be mad. There'll be no more reality TV.
Well, I mean, it could happen in China. It may already be happening in China. I mean, is Yao Ming a product of an arranged marriage? I mean, I've seen that argument made. I don't know how true it is, but it's not genetic manipulation in the way that the article is talking about it.
Selective
breeding,
breeding,
of genetic manipulation.
Yeah. I mean, by the standards of GMO, a lot of people say that, just because if you selectively breed plants, then that's genetic modification. I disagree with that because we need to have two separate categories of things when you're, talking about that kind of stuff. When you're manually manipulating things and taking genes from other animals and putting them into plants and stuff, that's one type of genetic modification, and the other one's really just selective, breeding, which is genetic modification, but it's a totally different world. So, yeah, what you're saying right there, that is a type of genetic modification or manipulation, but selective breeding, different world. We're talking here like getting in there with CRISPR and messing around with stuff and making someone with 1,000 IQ. Okay, so if China starts to do this right now, they could probably currently raise IQs by 15. And they're already ahead by about 5 points over there in China as far as the average IQ throughout China is about 5 points higher. Japan as well, and places like that compared to the USA. And I think the average here is around 100. Over there it's around 104, 105. And that little bit of a change makes a big difference. So imagine if the average went up by like 15 and all that sort of thing, they would have a pretty big advantage.
You have to be careful because the mean IQ is always defined as 100. And so you can't say, you have to look at it relative to other things. And so the United States relative to China in general is smarter. But also China wins in terms of like population, just the distribution of the set. The number of people in China versus the number of people in the United States. There's a huge number of people in China. Also India, as it turns out. India has is hugely intelligent. And population-wise, they win dramatically over the United States. 300 million people in the United States. If you take the smartest 300 million people in India and the smartest 300 million people in China, and you compare that to the United States, we are vastly outmatched in terms of brain power. It's downright scary as an American. So
it's like,
China,
we need to be doing this at home, but maybe we should look at it as from a global perspective. Once we get more intelligent, maybe we'll see that all the different races and skin colors and locations doesn't matter, that we're all humans and we need to work together. Maybe that's something that we'll see as soon as we add 15, 20 IQ points. We'll be like, oh, the fact that he sounds different than I do and looks different than I do, that all doesn't matter. Maybe that'll fade away and we can start to really solve some global problems and start to colonize the rest of the freaking solar system. That'd be kind of cool. So maybe we should do it just for that.
I don't even know how useful IQ really is for dealing with overall intelligence and a whole bunch of other things. I would be really curious in the historical component, and we won't really be able to know that until we're able to, bring back ancient humans and see what's the evolutionary impetus on intelligence and where is that going, and what does that do? Because maybe the great filter event or that destroys us all is when we figure out this kind of thing, and then suddenly everybody is very much smarter, and then all of a sudden nobody has a will to live anymore. I don't know. It seems like that there's an evolutionary component here that's a little bit dangerous, and we're going to have to be careful with.
So we all become nihilists and realize that entropy cannot be stopped and all that sort of thing. There's nothing we can do about it, or we just become misanthropes and kill each other. I don't know. I feel like the other idea here that is kind of funny, and people are like, would you guys stop with the tinfoil hat stuff? This is just fun. So we get really smart, and we build a bunch of spaceships, and we leave. We leave a couple people here, and we leave them naked in a garden somewhere, and we just take off. How about that? I think we should do that. And we name one Adam and one Eve. And throw a snake in there for goodwill. And then have some guys write a book about it. Yeah. Let's move on, shall we? The Oculus founder. We're going to talk about hardware now. That was kind of in a weird spot. I thought that was over with the science, but we sort of threw a science article in there before the hardware, but whatever. Anyway, the Oculus founder has said that the Rift will come to Mac if Apple ever releases a good computer. And he's saying that because most of the computers they have right now just don't have the horsepower. Apple has not focused on GPU power because their users don't typically need as much as they used to. I mean, they've got the AMD FirePro D700 that's in their trash can machine. Is that the trash can machine, the Mac Pro, or is it something else? I think it's a trash can, right?
Yeah, no, that's right.
And that it's pretty damn fast for video editing, but they've just completely the total top high end market they've kind of just neglected, which is I think kind of weird because that used to be their thing. Like, hey, we're gonna get all the video editors and graphic designers and stuff, and they still have them, but they're like, you guys have enough power. You this is what you get, and all the gamers and nerds over on PC and Linux. They can do their thing with their Uber graphics cards and whatever, but you guys don't need that. We'll tell you what you need. This is what you
turns
need.
Out.
Go ahead.
No, because Linux is a mess right now with the whole Vulkan situation and the whole Wayland, and we're still running X11 from 1979 and blah, blah, blah. So they're really just doing Windows. Linux kind of got the shaft here, too.
Well, that is true. I'm drinking water right now. That is true, but you do have the HTC Vive. And the Vive has said out of the gate they're going to support Linux, and they're also going to support Mac. And the main reason for that is because Valve is really pushing this thing, and Valve pretty much from now on, mark my words, just about anything that Valve does is going to have support for Linux, and they're also going to try to support Mac on as many things as they possibly can, because they see Windows as being not the primary platform any longer. So just take a look at that. And the HTC Vive is also selling like crazy. I think I'm more excited for the Vive than the Oculus Rift. And you should be able to eventually play any game that works on the Rift on the Vive. It's just like whenever we would ask people, hey, is this compatible with the Vive and the Oculus and other VR headsets out there? People will look at me and be like, well, yeah, it's in the future. This is going to be kind of like a monitor brand. It's like, oh, this game won't run on your HP monitor, but it'll only run on a Samsung monitor. That's ridiculous. In the future, everything's going to run on pretty much all the different VR, just different settings. They're PCs. They should be able to do it, unless there's some weird thing that disallows it. But who knows? Yeah, ready to move on and talk about this Samsung 15 terabyte SSD. I want one of these. There's no price mentioned here. It's a SAS drive as well, so you'd have to get some sort of controller if you have a normal motherboard. But the SAS drive is capable of, the interface is capable of 12 gigabits per second. That is nice. Look at that serial attached SCSI. And the random, I guess the IOPS are going to be 200,000 and 32,000 IOPS. But 12,000 megabits or megabytes per second. I mean, that's not 12,000, 1,200. That's way too fast. It's also really thick. Where's the actual thickness measured on this damn thing? Well, way thicker than what most people have in their laptops. But still, good for servers.
This is actually a standard form factor in the enterprise. So 2.5-inch drives that are this tall. It's basically standard issue server chassis. And the fact that it's, 1.2 gigabytes per second is really the most surprising part of this. So I can tell you that this thing is designed to be used in arrays. Big arrays. A single drive with this capacity in the enterprise does not make any sense, because you would be better off having 6 or 12 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte SSDs, just because in the enterprise typically you want maximum IO operations per second. And 200,000 and 32,000 IO operations per second, which is what this thing is advertised as, is nothing to sneeze at. But with a 15 terabyte capacity, if you needed a server with that kind of capacity, like 15 terabytes, you would not buy one of these drives. You would buy 6 or 12 1 or 2 terabyte drives. But if you wanted to put 10 of these in a server, now we're cooking with gas.
Yeah, I'm seeing people like just buying up these things like crazy, buying 10, 12, put them all in one system and then being done with it. That would be pretty insane. I wonder if I wonder how expensive they're going to be. I wonder if they're going to be too expensive for Google to use. I know Google's working on their own hard drive technology right now, but which are going to still be spinning platters. But I wonder if the price can come down enough on these so that they'll be viable to be used for servers like video servers like YouTube and Twitch and that sort of thing. I don't know. Could be. Have to watch that. Now this article on PC World right here is kind of a whatever article. Intel outlines a plan to get back in line with Moore's law. So, yeah, kind of interesting. They're saying they want to be back in line by 7 nanometer and start their every 2-year cycle, but it's gonna take something a little bit different. They're gonna have to use ultraviolet lithography, extreme ultraviolet lithography. It allows it's just right here. It says it eliminates some of the complexity because right now they're having trouble. Their current tooling cannot be. I mean, a lot of their tooling and that sort of thing just can't be used anymore. They can't make things any smaller with what they've got. And also the error rate goes way up when you start to get stuff that's this small, which will drive the prices up because there'll be more dead or bad units. So they're going to need something different. I'm not exactly too knowledgeable when it comes to extreme ultraviolet lithography. I wonder if it's still going to be as warm. It doesn't sound like it's going to be as warm as the standard stuff. But are you familiar with this, Wendell?
Yeah, so I think it's more interesting what they're not talking about than what they're talking about, because if you read this, I think this is written for shareholders or people that have invested in Intel, or people that are sort of not really industry insiders, but sort of people on the periphery of the industry that have more than a passing interest in it. And so what they're not talking about are things like gains from architecture changes, gains from instructions per clock improvements, gains in clock speed. And I think that the situation is much more dire than Intel lets on. Because look at it this way. If Intel wasn't saying, oh, Moore's Law, we've got it under control, we've got a plan, we're going to be ready to do this. Let's assume for a second that it's dire worst case scenario and that there's no situation that, that it's just the worst situation you can possibly imagine, which is we've reached the end of life with the technology and there's nothing more that we can do. It's not like that. I'm just saying imagine that it's that bad. Given that it's that bad, what's going to happen to your shares? What's going to happen to your stock? What's going to happen to the stuff that you've got? The computer that you have today is going to be perfectly fine in 5 years or 6 years or 7 years. And certainly if you've got Ivy Bridge or Sandy Bridge or even Haswell on the desktop, you're basically fine. I mean, we've done videos, a lot of other channels have done videos on, it's like, oh, you got a Sandy Bridge i5 or an i7? Let's just put a fast video card in that and call it a day, and it's completely fine. This is really what Intel is terrified of. Most of the improvements that Intel have made have been in increasing the clock speed. The top end Skylake i7 part is 4 gigahertz, increasing the amount of cache that's available on the Xeon processors, and doing other improvements that are really incremental improvements over instructions per clock, incremental improvements. We haven't really seen any dramatic architecture improvements at all. On the server side, we've gone, from 6 cores and 8 cores 5 years ago to 18 and 36 cores now, which I guess is okay and cool for a server. But for the desktop, it's like, I don't know. But for a shareholder and for people interested in business, that doesn't translate into more people buying stuff at the same rate that they used to. And so I think this is a little bit Intel being like, no, we've got it, it's under control. We're going to keep die shrinking.
That totally explains the headline now. I mean, the getting back in line with Moore's Law, because I don't see that really happening. I mean, unless we move on to quantum coprocessors or some new technology, I don't see that happening. With current silicon, I know they're going to move to some other things other than silicon. They're doing some research into other things other than silicon, but I don't see them getting back in line.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that it's going to change how ubiquitous computing is. Because historically, a laptop was always slower than a desktop. You could always get a laptop that is okay, but if you really wanted some serious horsepower, you would get a desktop. But the parity between laptops and desktops are much closer than they've ever been, especially with Skylake. Not in the graphics department, just in the computation department. I'm talking about SSD speeds, peripherals, things like really high-end tablets. You know, they've got the 1.2 gigabyte per second SSDs. They've got the high-speed peripheral interface. They've got the clock speed. The clock speed is getting up there. It's not 4 gigahertz that you have on the desktop parts, but you do have a lot of laptops and tablets, even things like the Microsoft Surface, where they can hit and sustain over 3 gigahertz in turbo, and the thing's basically fine. It gets a little warm, but it doesn't overheat and doesn't do anything bad. These die shrinks and this progress with Moore's Law is not really going to unlock clock speeds much past 4 gigahertz. Maybe 5 gigahertz. Maybe. But the real improvements would have to come from architectural changes and from instructions per clock improvements and really, really dramatic changes, not in the manufacturing process. The manufacturing process improvements will lower power and this kind of thing, but in terms of software to take advantage of, you know, desktop software to take advantage of multiple cores, this kind of thing, that's not where it's at. It's about market growth for Intel, and market growth for Intel is in portable devices. It's not about bringing more desktop computational power to the masses. Now, enthusiasts like us, oh yeah, I will totally take an 18-core desktop part and I will find a way to use it. But, you know, think about, you know, your parents or your mom or your neighbors or whatever. They're not 4-core. They're going to be fine with that Sandy Bridge for some time to come. And that's really Intel's nightmare scenario.
All right, so you were just talking about just slapping a graphics card in it and calling it a day. Well, AMD tried this with laptops back in 2008. They have their XG8. They were trying to standardize external GPUs with laptops, and they were trying to get laptop manufacturers to put this very simple little connector on there. It failed miserably. And maybe now that we've moved on a little bit, graphics cards are gotten smaller. Back then, the external cases had to be huge. But now we've got, you know, high bandwidth memory. We've got smaller GPUs that use, you know, less power. Maybe we can do this without having to have a giant desktop graphics card and a giant desktop power supply in a box that you carry around. Maybe we can do this now. So AMD wants to do it again thanks to Thunderbolt 3. Should be pretty easy connector. They may make a slightly different connector, but they want to get a standard connector on laptops. And it's not just for them. They want this to work with NVIDIA stuff as well. They just want to standardize external GPUs for laptops. So what do you think? They think they've got it right this time, Wendell?
So this kind of plays in a little bit with what we were talking about Skylake, because again, you can't think about what you want, because what you and I want is a really awesome desktop computer.
Right.
What the unwashed masses want is basically a MacBook Air with a big-ass graphics card. That's really what they want. MSI has also come up with some really good solutions. We saw that at Computex last year, where it's just basically a PCI Express interface. USB 3.1C, the spec was just approved for Thunderbolt 3, so it combines Thunderbolt 3, DisplayPort 1.4, and USB 3.1, and everything in one connector. So you get PCI Express 3, 4 lanes, and just all this stuff. USB 3.1, this reversible C-type connector, really is apparently going to be the Jesus connector in terms of, you know, what it, the kind of stuff, the kind of connectivity it delivers. So we've also got now Razer with its core GPU enclosure, which is a Thunderbolt 3 connection, PCI Express by 4. The Surface Book and its funky little connector, that's a PCI Express connector. Although I think it's by 2. It's a by 2 interface for the graphics card in the keyboard, which is sort of funny. But with PCI Express 3, you can actually squeeze out enough bandwidth for a GPU like that you're not really bottlenecking, at least not bottlenecking too bad with that kind of an interface. And if you think about it, that's probably where the consumer market is heading. I mean, even Microsoft with their whole console thing, with like, let's put the graphics card, you know, far away from everything else. This is where the market is headed. We may not really have, you know, mass-produced desktop computers, except maybe in a business setting, in the not too distant future. People may just have, you know, a tablet or a clipboard or something that has a Thunderbolt interface. So when you're at your desk, you know, you can have your 2 or 3 or 4 or 4K monitors, you know, but you can also just grab your device and go. Certainly, I would like to have a peripheral like that with the Surface Book that has a little bit more robust interface so that I can run 2 4K monitors at 60 hertz like I was promised. I'm going to be sour about that one for quite some time. But can you imagine a Surface dock where you've got a really nice graphics card, and it's sort of an industry standard thing? I think it's in the industry's best interest to come up with something like that. USB 3.1 maybe is that thing. But AMD, in terms of the interface and how that's handled from a driver perspective and that kind of thing, there are some hurdles there in software. And I think that AMD's solution is a little bit hardware, but mostly software. And a set of standards that I think can definitely be utilized by the industry in order to really enable this kind of functionality across everything. I wouldn't be surprised if Intel adopts this standard, honestly, because, hey, Intel adopted AMD's 64-bit extension, so why not this?
They also liked Mantle quite a bit. I mean, AMD has a history of doing stuff like this where they make things for the industry. And if this was Team Green, they would make it only Team Green. Like, you must have an NVIDIA GPU. It only works on NVIDIA this, and it has to have the NVIDIA this on board. So the special proprietary NVIDIA connector, that's the way it would work. And they would make a ton of money because they would be like, hey, we love this proprietary crap. And it's better because it's green. Just like FreeSync versus G-Sync. It's better because it's green and it's got a little chip on board or whatever. Makes it more expensive. Yeah. Anyway, keep an eye on that. And let's move on and talk about some very strange, stretchy robot skin. One of the things we were talking about last week was metal muscles on robots that can become either really soft or also tense up, just like a human muscle. That's one of the advantages humans have is with a robot, you just have to like pick up something very rigidly, and you don't have soft muscle tissue that can flex and harden immediately. Well, they worked on that. Now they need some nice, soft, stretchy skin for robots, and the team at Cornell is working on that. It's also going to be able to change colors. So they're using, I guess, they looked at cephalopods, they looked at octopi, which is delicious if you ever have nice octopi. Never mind. That would be pretty good, actually. Maybe I'll make that for dinner. Or squid pie. Whatever. Anyway, they wanted to change colors and be flexible. So they've got this material they developed that can expand, I believe it's up to 6 times its original size. And they said that this could be used for a robot. And imagine this. You've got a robot there, and it looks pretty human. It can move around. This is in several years down the road. And its skin can just kind of change color depending on either what it's doing, your mood, the power state that it's in, just all sorts of different things. They could have a party bot that's just like a strobe light the entire time. I don't know. You imagine like clubs having party bots that just come out there and dance with you, and they're basically moving strobe lights? That'd be kind of interesting. Don't take my idea. I'm going to build it myself. Anyway, the only problem that they're really having with this
McGee
right
was
now,
the original party encephalopod.
that should be a t-shirt. The only thing that they're having a problem with right now is the material they've developed sort of dries out if it gets too hot or if it's in the heat. So they have to figure out how to make it not really evaporate, and then they'll be onto something. So they're playing around with a few different things, but it seems like color changing skin will be the future for robots. I wonder if this will make them. I wonder if in the near future, or not the near future, the more far future, we'll have robots that are essentially camouflage because their skin can take on any color that they walk by. So as they walk by everything, they're just going to change color with the background or the wall or the street or whatever. That'll be kind of freaky. You'll be like, what is that over there? There's like a strange mirage-looking thing moving across the street. Oh, I'm slain. Then you're dead. It's too late. The other application for this sort of thing is extremely bendy, stretchy, curvable screens, like displays. That's another application for some of this technology. And we'll have to keep an eye on, see what Cornell comes up with next. All right, what's next on the list? How about blasting asteroids out of the sky with lasers? That's not very romantic. I mean, compared to Armageddon, getting on your spaceship and landing on and planting a nuke, and then Hollywood wouldn't like this at all. Like, all you have to do is just press a button, and then a laser zaps the asteroid away from the Earth. So essentially, what the idea here is send out a bunch of different giant lasers out into the solar system in different spots, like send them way out. And when something is coming this direction, just blast it, and it'll start to knock some debris off of it. The heat will knock some debris off of it, change its trajectory, and keep it away from the Earth. So essentially, putting these things all around in different spots in the solar system so that they can shoot the asteroids away and make us safer. Kind of an interesting idea, I guess. I don't know.
Seems reasonable. As a species, we're probably too dumb to worry about these kinds of things.
Yeah. The thing that I worry about the most is, let's say we get these things out there and somebody hacks into it and says, hey, let's just turn all these things around and point them at the Earth. I think the range is only a couple 100 miles. They have to be kind of close to the asteroids. But what if there's one that's too close to the damn Earth and someone's like, hey, let's blow up the ocean? Just like, should we do that? Like, we don't care. We're smarter now. We're nihilists. Let's just melt the ocean. Let's boil it and have a little fun here. And then for at least a couple of days, we'll have delicious boiled fish, washing up on the shore. Then after that, we're all doomed. But it'll be fun. What if that happens?
They tried a beta version of this with the Exxon oil spill. It didn't work out according to plan. Turns out that kind of oil can't be used for frying.
Oh, God.
With apologies if you live in the Gulf area, because I know it was really terrible.
Yeah, really. Especially apologies if
I
you're...
think we skipped the triple entanglement article on
that's
quantum
next.
cryptography, which is really nice.
Let you go into that right now. I just put it up on the screen. This is interesting.
So you guys should check out this article that is about... So we've talked a little bit before about entangled particles and how entangled particles are a convenient way to allow two parties to communicate and be sure that they haven't been eavesdropped on, because any eavesdropper will affect the signal. Well, they've actually been able to get a three-way entanglement worked out in the lab. I mean, theoretically that's been possible on paper, but to their knowledge, nobody has ever worked it out in a lab. And they sort of detail an experiment where they've gotten three-way quantum entanglement in the lab. And so this sort of paves the way for three-party communication, which is maybe useful from a network protocol standpoint, in order to allow a communication channel from one party to two other parties through this type of a system. In the alternative, it would allow 2 bits of information to be encoded on a per photon basis, which in terms of energy transmission density is absurdly high, just astonishingly high. So being able to encode 2 bits per photon in the lab is huge. It'll probably be 50 years before this technology is usable with like fiber optic cables or through any kind of other like actual real communication mechanism. But holy crap, 2 bits per photon, that's insane.
Yeah, the only thing that'll be faster is the Ansible. And I still have a feeling that is theoretically possible. Maybe. Do you think that they could make the Ansible?
Well, I think the gravity waves announcement, like for me personally, the last best hope that I had for the Ansible was gravity waves, or lack thereof. And now that we have gravity waves and gravity waves travel at the speed of light, it's like, damn it, that was how I was planning to implement an Ansible, but it's not going to work.
All right, last thing to talk about today, it's software. They've the new Doom will be out, I guess, in May, and they have a couple different covers here. They want some help choosing the actual cover. They've got the black, the whole Satan-looking thing here. If you're from a part of the country who's scared of Satan, don't vote for that one. It's Doom, of course. It's all about hell and everything else. And then the second cover is sort of an homage to the original Doom cover here. You're hanging out hanging out in hell there, shooting demons. Even though that's Mars, not hell, I believe, in the first one. This looks more like hell than Mars.
So obviously the second one is better.
I think the second one's better, but I don't want my opinion to affect everyone's opinion out there. I don't know. The first one is really clean, and there's some strange looking symbols, maybe a sigil or something on the back of the box. It's kind of minimal. I do like the minimal approach to it, but I mean, come on, this is Doom. There's nothing minimal about Doom. It's over the top carnage. It's just freaking Doom. So probably the second one. I don't know. From my take, let me know what
Just
you guys think.
Use the old
comments.
box; it'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we're not going to get a box anyway. We're downloading it, right? I mean, is this a game that people are going to... That's another thing. Like, most people just go ahead and grab all their stuff on either Steam or GOG or something like that. And every time I say GOG, it hurts a little bit, but that's how they say it now. They told me, please don't say GOG or Good Old Games anymore. It's just GOG. So I was like, all right, GOG it is. Anyway, I usually buy my games there. Is this a game that would make you guys go out and buy a boxed copy just so you could have the boxed copy? Just curious. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, that's pretty much it for today. Thank you guys for watching the tech. And yeah, I'll close out with one more reminder of our store here. Where is it? I've put it here. There we go. Go get some hats and stuff, everybody. This Zweihander t-shirt is drawn using some concept art from the actual video game. This will be a scene in the game. So once these sell out, we'll make some new concept art. So these are not going to probably be in the store forever. We'll sell them in batches. Maybe in a couple years, if people will go crazy about it, we'll bring a couple hundred more shirts back or something like that. So go ahead and grab those while you can over at epicpants.com. And yeah, thanks to you guys. Without you guys, we wouldn't really be here, or would we? The government's paying our bills. We're just saying lies to make you guys distract all the. We're supposed to distract all the sysadmins so that they don't see what the government's really doing. Isn't that what we're really doing? I don't know. I'm going off the tangents. All right, guys. See ya.